maybe.
Oh. I think we're live. We're good to go?
Right.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Really
Hi,
excited
everybody.
to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, really excited to be here. Welcome, everybody who's joining us today. My name is James. I'm the head of community at Octant, and we're going to be chatting some really exciting things today, both just in the general Ethereum landscape and what's going on the staking side of things there, and then some exciting things that we've been working on in the background between Octant and Diva, and how that kind of bridges back to addressing some of the staking ecosystem challenges that we're currently noticing right now. So alongside with me, we have the engineering lead at Octant, Artem, and then Superfizz, and also Pablo from Diva Staking. So say hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Nice to be here in great company.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. So just to give a little context to start off the call, we at Octant had seen Diva and some of the stuff that they were sharing with the Ethereum community. I think the first thing I saw was the vampire attack talk that you had given a couple months ago, which was really, really neat. And that actually opened my eyes to really how big the issue is with some of the centralized stuff going on within the Ethereum ecosystem. So maybe we just want to set some context first and kind of talk about some of the challenges that we're seeing right now, and then we can jump into what we have going on behind the scenes with Diva and Octant.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Pablo, you want to lead the charge there, or Superfizz, you're welcome to join too.
Yeah, so maybe it would be good to start with where we are today with the Ethereum Beacon chain, right? Because at so many levels on Ethereum, we've been making this huge leap towards proof of stake, and that has been going really well in a lot of ways. But it also meant that we had to set a lot of new mechanisms, new ways to engage with the community. And so far, staking is something that originally has been meant to be performed by solo stakers by staking 32 ETH. By running your own node and by locking this amount. And some of the first issues that we saw were with validator centralization, where we had some clients that were dominant and some still are. So some of the work that already happened and where we're doing well and where we're succeeding is the software powering the Beacon chain, which are the clients, have gone through these stages where it has been more centralized with Prism before. And thanks to bringing this visibility into the ecosystem, everybody has been gradually moving and diversity has improved a lot. There's another area where we have the execution clients where we still have huge risk with Geth, which although it's an amazing piece of software, we're still over-reliant on pieces like Geth. But because not everybody is solo staking and there's been liquid staking solutions, there's been a trend towards using more and more liquid staking tools, and that's led to a kind of change in the composition of the network, where maybe we were expecting to have a lot more solo stakers, which honestly would be the best for the ecosystem with maximum diversity. What we're seeing instead is that we still have a lot of centralization in some providers, which a lot of them are permissioned, like Lido, which is relying on 37-ish entities, or some other exchanges like Coinbase, Binance, or permission operators like Figment. So in areas like this, we still have a lot of work to do. And yeah, well, one thing that we've been working on at Diva is like a different kind of solution to help us shift away from this completely permissioned, towards a completely permissionless model. And from this list, each solution is offering different pros and cons. what they have in common is that a lot of them are quite convenient for the user. You can simply stake and hold. There's solutions like Rocket Pool, which already offer a very convenient and very, very good permissionless solution. But the problem is we don't have enough of these solutions. So we have solo staking estimated at 6.5%, Rocket Pool with 2.8%, and practically the entirety of the rest of providers are still permissioned. So that's something that we're working on new models. That's part of the work that at the Diva community we're doing. And Octant has been one of the pioneers in kind of using staking in new ways. So what I'm super excited is it feels like our missions overlap a lot. And maybe for those of us who are not familiar with Octant, it might be good kind of to present a little bit of the amazing work that you're doing with public goods funding. Oh, sorry, I think you're muted.
You muted, James.
Oh, the host has unmuted my mic. Okay, sorry. I didn't realize he had the ability to mute. Thanks for letting me know. So yeah, to give a little context about Octant, Octant is a project that's born out of Golem Foundation. And so if we have any OGs in the crowd here that remember Golem, you might remember that we had a really successful crowdfunding round back in 2016. It was one of the biggest in the Ethereum space. And so fast forward to 2019, because the Golem treasury had appreciated so well, Golem actually split up into two separate entities. So there's now Golem Factory, which is still building that initial mission for a peer-to-peer marketplace and for computing power. And then Golem Foundation, being a split off entity, was designed to explore other interesting use cases for the GLM token without distracting from that core mission. And so when Ethereum transitioned over to proof of stake, that presented Golem Foundation with a really interesting opportunity to do something with staking rewards. And so that's where we landed with Octant. So the basic setup with Octant is that we've staked 100,000 ETH, primarily using minority clients like Nimbus client. And as these staking rewards are coming in, we gather them within a 90-day period and then allow our community to decide where those funds go. So as a user, when you lock in the GLM token into the Octant contract, you proportionally receive Ethereum staking rewards relative to how much of the GLM token you lock in. Now, where it gets really interesting is what you do with those rewards, because you can keep 100% of the rewards for yourself, but there's a matching pool that if you decide to donate any amount of the rewards that you receive, your effective donation will be leveraged from that matching pool. So your money goes a lot further if you donate versus if you keep it for yourself. And so we just ran our first round, which concluded at the end of October, and we saw some really great things, including Protocol Guild and HyperCerts, Tor project, Roadkey, some really amazing projects both in and outside of the Ethereum ecosystem, receiving some pretty substantial rewards. So a really good thing for us to build on top of. But we're recognizing that in order to grow, in order to have more impact, conversations with really interesting tools and technologies like Diva make a lot of sense for us, because if we can have more impact in the space and grow rewards for both our users and public goods, then I think that's just a win-win in terms of both the Golem ecosystem and the broader Ethereum ecosystem. Oh yeah, go ahead, Artem.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a little bit. Thanks for the introduction. I think it was great. And adding to the topic about like the centralization of Ethereum and where it's all going, I think in the end of August, the voices about centralization risk became louder. People were talking about this before, but I think in the end of August, I saw the podcast with Danny Ryan, and there was the conversation about like vampire attacks and what do we do as a community to make sure that we minimize centralization risk, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think at that point, we started looking more at Octant and thinking, okay, how do we actually bring more capital towards public goods? Because like we have our own capital that we're staking, and we created this mechanism that generates rewards, and people can like decide through community governance how to distribute it and fund public goods. but also how do we address the risks of centralization, but also use that towards like funding public goods projects, right? And then we started looking into a number of solutions, and we started looking into DVT solutions appearing on the market right now, and that's where Diva caught our eye, and we thought it was like very interesting project. So we were aligned both in terms of decentralization and in terms of public goods funding, and that's where we are right now.
And yeah, one of the things that, if I can share my screen for a tiny moment, and also curious to hear Fiz's opinion, because she has a lot to add. But these are some of the projects that Octant has been supporting. So they're all very Ethereum aligned, like Protocol Guild, things kind of more adjacent, like Tor, Givet, Gitcoin. So a lot of the really dear projects, also ETHStaker, that help make our ecosystem amazing. And for me, this feels like an amazing playground, right? Like there's this playground where people can come and, like find alternate models to finance. And where it intersects a little bit is what we learned with Diva, is that when we were talking to users, we realized that there's different ways that people engage with staking. And that can be like simply staking your ETH, and then you get whatever, 4% rewards. And some people actually want the liquidity because they want to be degens. They want to be lending, doing LP, bridging, and like playing with their ETH at the same time as they get the rewards. But other people could be running a node to power these liquid staking solutions. So I think what Diva can offer for Octant is allowing them to first get all the benefits of a permissionless solution that connects with DVT, improving the risk, and smoothing rewards, and so on. But also allowing new use cases that are a bit more specialized. Like what happens when instead of like just, and I say just because it's already amazing that you're staking 100,000 ETH for public goods. But what happens if you don't just stake them, but if we explore new use cases like liquid staking tokens, like how can a liquid staking token support things like PGF, or how can running a node like attract more ETH or new ways to support projects by kind of taking these specialized roles in the ecosystem. So I'm super excited because this feels like a completely new territory. And yeah, I think that this new technology gives us like the primitives to kind of play with new things.
Well, I think what excited us the most when we started looking into Diva is that the attitude and approach of the Diva team was something like, we want to build something very decentralized and permissionless. And we know right now there are a number of challenges for like different liquid staking protocols on how to make sure that the rewards are distributed in a fair way. And there is right now still an issue between the flow of information between execution client and consensus client that might be solved in the future, but still haven't been solved. But also, like Diva looks at themselves as like another layer on top of the consensus, which runs in decentralized and permissionless way. And it both was aligned with our like values and approach that we also want to create more decentralization into ecosystem, but also create like a permissionless mechanism where part of the rewards that are generated from the liquid staking protocol can be donated and sent to the public goods, and people will be able like to decide and have like power in terms of what to fund and who will receive funding and what kind of impact they're going to create.
One of my favorite things about what's going on with Octant and what is going to lead into Diva is I struggle a lot with looking like I'm virtue signaling. And it's something like I wrestle with in my head, like the health of the network, like we should do good things, and all of these like loaded words about like goodness and wholesomeness. At some point, I want people to kind of realize that I don't view that as virtue signaling. I view that as building network value in our network. And if we build long-term value in our network, we're all going to prosper. And so when I look at what Octant is doing, there's this treasure chest that they could continue to multiply by getting ETH. But rather than hoarding all of that, they are investing that 100K ETH into the ecosystem, which will have a long-term positive impact on the value of their Ether. And so it's so difficult for me to convey this idea that when you invest in public goods, when you invest in the development and growth and success of Ethereum and Ethereum staking, you're not throwing your money away. You're really supporting your long-term investment. You're supporting all of our future success, and that you'll get so much more in the long run than by extracting value, by getting as much as you can now. You'll get some, you'll kill Ether, you'll get some money, great. But the long-term potential of all of this is so extraordinary. I don't think any of us can really imagine it yet.
Yeah,
definitely. And one of the thoughts I have is, it feels sometimes like we're really thinking in one dimension. And that's something that Artem and I were talking about in DevConnect in Prague. And we were thinking, well, where is this all going, right? Because it all started with cloud money. Like, we started with Bitcoin and we said, okay, we have money and that's gold and amazing. And then we came up with proof of stake and EAP 1559, and we started burning, and we're like super excited because we're all getting rich every time transactions go up. But I wonder sometimes if we've gotten lost in this deflation maximalism in a way, and we're just thinking of what's good for us now without thinking about what's good long term. So I just want to ask Artem for permission. Is it okay if I share a little bit of the ideas that we talked about there?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. So I'm just going to share here because I feel like we need a new framework on how to think about things like this, right? And we said, we use this term called impact staking. And what if we have this new primitive in Ethereum, which is, there's this thing that's going to generate yield, but if we cut it in the right ways, maybe we can align things, because staking is in a way getting future yield and like kind of being aligned to that security. And if we say that Bitcoin is sound and Ethereum is ultra sound, that's because we're deflating, right? We keep issuing ETH, but we're burning a lot more. And of course, that keeps changing every day. And in a way, we're already so much better from a monetary perspective than Bitcoin, right? Because the supply is going down. But sometimes I feel like maybe we got caught in this idea of deflation maximalism in over-optimizing for the present. And there's this image I have in my mind of like, there's this bowl of water, and that water is maybe the Ethereum economy. And if we have this issuance of like, there's this magic issuance of ETH happening, right? And that goes to the people who behave and who support the network. But then you have those transaction fees. And it means whenever you use Ethereum, you're also taking money out of the system. And as long as this thing is flowing, things are changing hands, right? You have this velocity of money. And we have this monetary policy, which are the EIPs, that allow us to kind of put kind of a policy, right? We don't really have like a Fed in Ethereum, but we do have EIPs to control this. So we were asking, if Bitcoin is cloud gold, what are we building? Is this like a cloud nation? If it's a cloud nation, like what are we building in the first place? And if you're a 90s kid like me, you probably play some video games and you can think, okay, what's that nation? And if that nation is stagnant, the water's not moving, it's just getting like contaminated, nobody wants to be there, there's no life, where ideally you would want this thing to be flowing, right? And bringing life to everything in the ecosystem. And I feel like Octant's a really good example of that, of ways in which you can kind of play with interests and have this sandbox. But what in reality is doing is bringing real funds to real projects that can like flourish thanks to that. So here's the game reference. If you play Civilization, like I feel like Ethereum is a little bit like this Switzerland country where it's built on these principles of being open, being trusted, being neutral and resilient. And from that's kind of the core ideas, like the layer 0 values. And then you have like really good custody and contracts. and maybe have great tools for discussion or trading, swapping. We're starting to have good communities. Like, I think we're still in progress. I think we could proudly say. And we're working on the frontier of privacy, identity, arbitration, but we still haven't sat down to think, what do we want to build? Like, do we want things like, do we want to work towards inclusion, towards funding for the commons, welfare, maybe long-term, as people retire, or regulators, or security, education? And I think what's happening is because we have something that's so minimal and it works so well, we sometimes get lose sight of what happens long-term. So this is an opinion, but I think monetary policy alone can lead to this tragedy of the common, and that we need new social and funding models. Because sometimes, if you think about present value creation, and you're just thinking in this line, I think there's also another line of maybe I can take less value today to get more value in the future. And maybe that means a little bit less yield, or making things that take a bit more effort, or maybe it means taking long-term commitments where nobody's willing to take those, or funding things where you're going to be losing money, but the ecosystem as a whole is going to be winning. So I think if instead of this monetary maximalism, we start thinking of this North Star of what's going to be that future that Fizz was saying, I think we can find small contributions that can have large impact. And I think that this model pioneered by Octant of impact staking, where you stake ETH, you can get the rewards, and some of that goes to public goods, is a really interesting primitive that we should work towards.
I think we need to find a way to package this idea into a bite-sized chunk. And you have such great graphics, but it's hard. It's hard for us, for me. We share this idea that not maximizing profit now will maximize profit later. I wish that we could find a way to make that easily consumable so that it's a message that could spread, because right now it takes 20 minutes to convey that message, and then there's a 50% chance that it will even connect. But it does. It's so such a valuable idea that there are so many value extractors. There are people who are saying, I'm gonna invest in ETH for 20 years, and so with that 20-year investment, I need to maximize my yield today. And our message is kind of like, if you want to maximize the value of your ETH, don't focus on your yield. Focus on the inherent value of Ethereum as a platform. I wish, and I don't have the mental imagery for it, but I see so many of the cool graphics that you create. I hope that over time we can kind of aggregate or I don't know, land on one kind of meme that we can really use to share that idea.
I could try to summarize, because we were doing this presentation in Prague, and Pablo talked a little bit about this, and then I talked a little bit about this. And the idea that really resonates with me is that, as Pablo mentioned, right, Ethereum is like a nation state in a way, right? And every nation state has a function to fund public goods. And usually people don't even think about it too much, because these things just work, And if they wouldn't work, you would just stop functioning as the normal human being. You would have to take care of all these things. And then the way nations fund this is through taxation mechanism, right? And the taxation mechanism, they're mostly rooted in fear, meaning if you're not going to pay, and it's enforced by violence, right? If you're not going to pay, we're going to take a physical body and put it in jail, right? And because you're afraid of this, there is some responsibility, obviously, but many countries mostly use fear, and you're afraid that you're going to be prosecuted, et cetera, et cetera. But you gave an example of Switzerland. I think it's one of those countries that more approach it more in a responsible way, right? I mean, there's always a spectrum, obviously, but I think if we think about this, that in a new state, the taxation must be approached from the responsibility point of view. And then it's not enforced by violence, but it's a self-taxation, right? You choose how much you want to donate. And that's exactly what we're doing at Octant. You can take all your money and go away. Nobody's stopping you from that, right? But then, that's first thing. It's rooted in responsibility, and it's self-taxation. Another point is that it's enforced by decentralized computation. It's not enforced by violence, right? And then there's also a play Either it can be self-taxation, maybe at some point there will become some kind of mandatory tax like 1%, 0.5%, that's going to be enforced by decentralized computation without violence, and everybody who will be part of that system will agree with this. But I think like the key messages that resonate with me is that it's rooted in responsibility, and second, it's enforced by decentralized computation, right? And if you want to be a good citizen, if you want to be a part of that system, you can also think, how do I make this system better, right? Mm-hmm. And then going back to your previous point, Superfizz, about like that Golden Foundation takes that 100,000 ETH and gives a part of that to fund public goods. There's this meme coming to me recently all the time from Spider-Man, right? With a great power comes great responsibility. That's exactly what Golden Foundation is in a way doing, because Golden Foundation feels its responsibility. It's a big part of Ethereum, and I think it's a signal to other players as well that you can do the same.
Yeah, I think that was a really big point that we wanted to get this message out as well, because there's been these calls for somebody to do something about some of the centralization issues that we touched on earlier, but with everybody being aware of what was going on, there was still action that needed to be taken. And I think in part, this is why we're having this conversation today, is to say, hey, we are taking this action. We want to support the health of Ethereum, and we want others to join us along with that, so that there's this aspect of balance that gets restored back to the health of Ethereum's decentralization. Superfizz, one more thing I was thinking about in terms of this meme, or this metaphor of what you were talking about how you can kind of get buy-in or understanding from that aspect of maybe not having as much yield now, but it being more beneficial in the long run. I had a few friends that from high school, they didn't go to college right away, and they were struggling a little bit, I think in their early 20s, and a handful of them decided to take the leap in terms of investing in themselves by going back to school at maybe a later age, and that investment in themselves, which maybe seemed like a burden at the time, produced tremendous benefits for them later on down the road. They were able to financially support themselves much further because they made that investment in themselves. And so I kind of see this in a way in a similar sort of methodology, that like in the short run, you might be seeing less of a financial impact in terms of what you're accumulating for yourself, but it's this broader investment into the ecosystem that you obviously have skin in the game by staking ETH. Therefore, this investment is going to work out a lot better for you in the long run, because you're making that conscious investment for more impact to come down the road.
Yeah, a lot of this, I don't want to get into like finance or politics, but a lot of this comes from my understanding of corporate America, that the focus of corporate America is something like quarterly profits. And it doesn't matter what's going to happen in 20 years. Everyone's focused on this quarter. And I feel like that is such a disservice to, everyone, every company, every shareholder, every person, because there's no real investment in the long-term success of anything, because everything is about getting profit now. And it seems like just a bad way, like the wrong way. And I like I said, people get onto me for talking about virtue, for like responsibility and planning and long-term investments and like investing in public goods. But I sincerely believe that the most profitable way to engage with any ecosystem is to have that 50-year focus rather than a quarterly focus. And that's really what's happening now. We're investing in public goods. We're investing in the long-term success of Ethereum.
Yeah, and it's really hard, right? Because there's this machine, and it's not like anybody wants to do that. But when you have this quarterly reporting, it's like either you do well or your capital gets allocated away. And usually like a regulator can step in to fix inefficiencies, but in Ethereum, like we have this blank slate, and I think we really have to like first raise awareness, second make it easy, make it rational. But yeah, I wonder, how do we meme that? Like, how do we go from ultrasound money, which now we understand and everybody loves it, right? But it's very monetary. Like, how do we go from there to like invest in yourself, invest in your ecosystem, in your community? Yeah, it's.
Hey, what about something like ultrasound value? Like
Ultrasound value?
It has a wider scope than money, because we're not trying to get paid. We're trying to bring value, and value encompasses so many more things than just finance.
Yeah. One idea I have is you're kind of moving something. Maybe I'm too geeky, but I see money as a two-dimensional thing, and you have like value today and value tomorrow, like in that graph. So you're kind of moving something in space-time when you're investing, and when you're doing public goods, you're really investing in the ecosystem. So you're kind of moving from this axis to the other one. But I wonder if other brains work like that. It's just me.
Well, your graphics they're very informative for me. Like when I see something that a graphic you've created and paired with an explanation, I'm picking up, chapters of information that I could not have otherwise picked up. So maybe I don't think like you, but the way that you think really educates me.
Thank you. Yeah, it means a lot coming from you. Actually, something, Fizz, that I think I really enjoyed from a talk we had before is you've been here for a while and you've been like a community advocate for decentralization. So I really like your visualization of like the three battles that we're seeing in Ethereum and how they get increasingly harder. So is that something you want to touch on a little bit? And maybe from there we can go more into the specifics.
It's not fresh on my head. If you begin, I will jump in. But
so I heard you say something like the client diversity was easy because it was just changing something. Then liquid staking is harder because there's network effects.
Yeah.
And the next steps can be things like restaking. So like the battles keep getting tougher, and I really like that because in a way we keep like kind of responding.
It's this concept, that we're not attacking more than we're ready for. Looking back now, consensus client diversity seemed easy. It was not easy at the time. It was a tremendous struggle. We spent probably a year working toward consensus client diversity. And rationally, you can look at it and you say, well, any operator could recognize that they could have tremendous losses if they don't do this. So of course it makes sense and everyone would do it. But it was not easy at the time. And now we're moving into the second battle, which is entity diversity, entity size, and we have entities who are acting in their best interest to grow. And this is kind of the first conflict. Like there is, we're not just openly fighting for the success of the chain. There is a specific party who is making these actions against our chain, and I believe that the consensus client diversity effort prepared us for this kind of battle. And sincerely, I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know if we're going to win, but I do know that we're building up we're growing our community to be hardened and more able to do these battles, so that our next battles will prepare us to even further decentralize the network and not just give up and say, well, they got us, we're out. Because when we do that, we've really lost this idea of Ethereum as an immutable smart contract layer. We've kind of given up. And so I really look forward to the growth of our community. I think in 20 years, if more people like us, and I think of others like Hani Abu, who is just fighting the good fight every day, ETHstaker, who was like really promoting a healthy community, the stronger our community gets, the more we're able to advocate for the success of Ethereum. So it's not just the code, it is people who understand and fight for the success of our chain. Thanks for getting me started, Pablo, because once I get on one of those riffs, I'm like, I can't shut up. But it's so real and so valuable. And once your mind clicks and is like, oh shit, if we don't fight for this network, then it's going to be captured. It's going to evolve into something that was never intended to be. then you're like, hey, this involves me. Like even on Twitter, on Reddit, how you stake, who you talk to, what you say, how you invest, it matters.
And
Totally.
Sorry. It's very well said. I'm just keep going back to like the metaphor of a nation, right? And at some point, people who live together as a community, whatever they share together, whatever they have in common, they need to come together and understand like what are we doing here? Are we just playing and getting like quarterly rewards and going away? And then this thing is going to die without our active participation and our active fighting for how it's supposed to function, right, in a decentralized way, without like centralized actors capturing the system? Or are we going to change our approach and make things work in a different way? And I think that's you hit it right on the head. That's very important, that people actually start thinking more long term, and they understand that if they don't do this, if we don't fight this fight right now, then we're not going to have like decentralized future, and we're not going to have this decentralized protocols. Maybe people will start doing this again in the future, but there's the fight that needs to happen right now.
My sick excitement, and this is kind of perverse, if Ethereum fails to decentralization, people will divest, the price will fall, it will no longer be enticing, and then we can try again. Like we'll try to build value again, we'll decentralize again, and it'll work for a while. If it doesn't catch on, if it doesn't happen, then people will divest, the value will fall, people will leave, we can try again.
Totally. I think that's oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, one last idea is, sometimes I feel like we talk of decentralization like it's ideal, but somebody, Vinay Gupta, said something to me I really liked. It's not an ideal. It's the contract that brought you to Ethereum. It's a social contract. Like when you bought your first ETH, somebody told you, this is your ETH. You have the right to self-custody. Nobody will delete it. You will be able to transact, and you will have safety, and you will not be censored. And when you got your first ETH, those are the guarantees that the system made to you. And to be decentralized is not like a place we reach. It's the fight we need to fight to preserve this social contract that keeps us all together. So I really like that idea.
I sincerely look forward to much of that fight happening in code at some point. I really believe the protocol will harden to enshrine decentralization, but until that happens, the community is that stopgap. And if we shirk our responsibility, then the code won't have time to be developed to a point to support that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think that's actually a really good segue, because one of the things as leading the community and getting to talk to a lot of people in the broader Ethereum ecosystem, when they first see Octant and they're asking questions about it, I think there's a lot of skepticism about where Octant might be able to go. Like it's not very clear that beyond what we have right now, that there's much room for improvement or room for growth. And so part of the reason and why we're so excited to be partnering with Diva, I think kind of comes back to answering those questions or those concerns that broader community members have about what the trajectory for Octant might be. So kind of coming back to the announcement and like what this means for the Golem community and what it means for more broadly like the Ethereum community that we're trying to inspire and considering to join us in this mission that we have. Let's maybe talk a little bit about what the future might hold for Octant and Diva's partnership and what that might look like. Arden, you maybe want to jump into that, or Pablo?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about this. So yeah, as I mentioned before, when we discovered Diva, we got really excited about what like potential collaboration it can bring together. And I think like James gave like a short introduction about Octant in the beginning, but I'd like to stress one important point, right? So what we're doing with Octant is we are experimenting with creating a sustainable mechanism of public goods funding, because right now most of the public goods, they are funded through donations in some way, and it's not sustainable long term. Sometimes it's just the only thing we have, but at the end of the day, we need to build a mechanism that will have sustainability, and the people who are working, who are relying on these funds to fund their life, can like know that they keep receiving the funds tomorrow, and they will be able to look at the system and think, okay, I can rely on this, and I can like build this project that doesn't have like maybe a business model, but creates tremendous value for the ecosystem, and they can keep being committed to that project, right? And then, as I mentioned before, we started thinking about how we can grow this capital, because we're using this capital to generate rewards that go to public goods projects. And then we ask ourselves, where do we bring more capital, right? And the answer is from more like Ethereum staking, because at the end of the day, we have this consensus protocol that essentially generates yield and provides security for ecosystem. And it seems like a natural way to take a small portion of these rewards and send them to the public goods, especially from those actors who have a big stake in the system, and they can afford giving a part of that to fund public goods, right? But we also we're thinking, how can we engage with other protocols, how we can support decentralization. And I think that's where it gets interesting with Diva, because Diva creating like a liquid staking protocol where people can come from both sides, from the liquid staker side and from the node operator side. And one of the mechanisms that we are exploring is that people will be able to use something like delegation, where they can delegate their ETH to a node operator that is going to stake that ETH, right? And we are exploring this model to fund more public goods, where people who both are interested in extra rewards, not only the ones that are generated from the liquid staker side, but also from the node operator side, but they're also interested in supporting the ecosystem. And so we're exploring the model where people will be able to, in a trust minimized way, stake that ETH that's going to be staked through the node operator and go to the Diva protocol and generates rewards from like Ethereum rewards plus extra rewards on top of that, where a portion of this will be sent to fund public goods, but also give them the right to choose how to distribute those rewards. So that's one of the interesting models that we're exploring. Another model that we're thinking about, and Pablo mentioned this before, is the liquid staking token, and what kind of different mechanism can play out there. So we're also thinking that we can give an opportunity to the people from that side to provide some endowments as well. So that's our current collaboration landscape. Pablo, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. And I wanted to add three images to this, as I'm the images guy. So I'm sharing here. So I guess where Octant is today is on staking ETH, and 4% of that is going to PGF and the community. What this allows, this collaboration, is to unlock this kind of technology tree of liquid staking and running a node. But it's not just running a node as in I'm choosing a provider, because with Diva being immutable and based on DVT, what Octant does is they become one of the node operators that people will pair with. So in the Diva model, every time there's a validator, there's 16 different operators that are receiving responsibilities for that, which means that if you're a home staker or if you're a professional or whatever you are, you will be matched with different people. And that means that it makes, first of all, it makes network takeover much, much harder, because you would need to capture 2/3 of the nodes in those committees, and there's like a series of protections for that. But the great news is, for a solo staker, this is like a visual I have a little bit of 16 different nodes, and they're failing constantly, right? And you have here 2 of them are failing, then 1 of them is failing, whatever. But what you see is in this node, even if everybody's failing a lot, like this 95% uptime, which is terrible, the cluster is always online, because you have people supporting each other. They're working as a team instead of as individuals. And Octant being like a team that's very experienced and that's also working with minority clients, what you can expect if you're a Diva staker is you will probably be paired often with some node from Octant, always in a way that's kind of fair and distributed. But if they're one of your peers, you can probably expect them to have a very high performance, to use a minority client with Nimbus. And that combination of factors, what it does is it makes your job as a solo staker so much better. Like if you're having a bad day, if your client is failing, if your connection is down for whatever reason, your electricity, that's fine because 2/3 of the nodes in your cluster are going to be supporting you. And that means that now home stakers with technology of DBT can have the same performance as previously only professionals did. So again, I know that a lot of home stakers have much better performance than professionals, but what I'm talking about here is basically the fear that stops a lot of people when people think, oh, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm going to get slashed. I'm going to lose my funds. So I think what this enables is kind of builds this diverse ecosystem where everybody's helping each other. And when that other peer is somebody that's really value aligned, like Octant, I think it's a net win.
I have a question that's going to sound antagonistic, and it's obviously it's not my intention. I'm on board with all of it, but with Octant staking 100K ETH, with the 11 out of 16 validators, the 16 validators, it's likely that they're going to find themselves in a position where there are validators where they're operating 11 of the keys. What are the considerations there, I guess?
That's a very good point, and that's why we are discussing a phase rollout, so they never become like a majority of the network, because otherwise it would defeat the purpose. So I think the announcement says something like up to 100,000. That is because it should be very phased and very gradual, both for risk management, but also to make sure they're pairing with other people in a way that they don't overtake the network. And
and I guess
like correct me if I'm wrong, Artem, but I think those should be like really like limits, right? For any deployment you do.
Yeah. Obviously, there are limits, and in terms of like rollout, the technology is new, and we obviously gonna start slowly, right? Both from the point of view of the security, but also from the point of view to make sure that the Diva system grows naturally. And I'm optimistic that there are going to be flows of capital towards Diva, and that Octant will might not be the biggest of the like people providing capital. We don't know that yet, obviously, but I'm not that concerned because of those two reasons, right? And we're not gonna roll out quickly, and that's number one. And the number two is that we will have some limit compared to how much of ETH we have and how much we still thinking how much it's going to be. It's going to be up to 100K, but we don't know how much specifically.
And obviously, like the more established, and I don't want to say big Diva gets, because we're all accepting this 22% limit, but the more established Diva becomes, the greater the dilution of any single party. So that's exactly what will happen for everyone over time. Makes sense.
Yeah, so at the Staking Foundation, we work a lot with the community and getting commitments and so on. And I would expect that Octant eventually will become like a slice that doesn't represent a majority, like by far. But that's something we still need to see, and we still need to work towards. But I think there's a lot more to be excited than to be concerned about if it's done in a responsible way.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, it just seems like a win-win-win across so many different layers there. It's obviously a win for Ethereum's decentralization or the health of Ethereum. It's a win for public goods funding. It's a win for the projects and their communities. I see this just as being beneficial for all. And when you can really hit that aspect on different layers, it's really, really exciting. And so, when we've been working behind the scenes about this and eventually made the decision to make this announcement, that's why, as a community builder, that's why I'm really excited, is because, this is going to directly impact our community and the broader Ethereum community in a positive way. So it's what has me so excited.
The big picture here is Octant with a large treasury, or, even. So while I sincerely appreciate Octant, even if you remove the name, a large treasury recognizes the value of DVT staking and recognizes the value it brings to our ecosystem. And that's fantastic because DVT could have been a corporate only model. It could have been a way for Coinbase to secure their validators rather than a way that individuals are more integrated into staking. So this is it's fantastic. I'm so excited to see how this is evolving.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see more people and more projects actually looking into DVT and realizing that it's not only about a resilience of like one node operator, because that's what most people use it right now because of lack of like production level incentive mechanisms like Diva was working on, right? But people will recognize that it's actually being used for all the purpose it was built for, resilience and decentralization, because you will be able to distribute the key shares between different holders and make the code work in a way that those machines come to consensus, and it creates more decentralization and more resilience for the whole ecosystem, not for a small group of people.
Yeah, I like to think about it as a layer 2 for the Bitcoin chain. Like we have layer 2s for execution, but yeah, this is kind of like one implementation. I'm not saying it's the only one or the final one. Maybe somebody comes up with a ton of new improvements, but it's a way of redefining the rules. The rules in the base layer are rigid for a good reason, but yeah, when you kind of create these sub networks, you get a new sandbox. So that's an exciting new area.
Yeah, I can easily say, and I certainly don't mean any disrespect to the other DVT developers. Like they have great products, but Diva is definitely the DVT product that I'm most excited about hitting mainnet, because I think it brings the most value to the network, not just to some individuals, I guess.
Okay. I'll pass it to the team. I'm just an evangelist.
I mean, and that's not, honestly, I don't intend that as a compliment for you. I intend that as like my excitement for Diva. Like it is one of when I get my head around something that excites me. And I was like this for Rocket Pool for 2 years, and people are like, Fizz, shut up about Rocket Pool. Nobody cares anymore. But when I see one of these products that just revolutionizes and brings like so much right-minded value to our network, like I can't help but talk about it. I'm just excited about it. It's a fantastic development. And to have Octant vouching, like saying, hey, we see this value, we want to be a part of it. How can we work together to bring value to the whole network? It's great. Like nothing makes me more happy.
Yeah,
sure.
and I think
I really love this interlayer collaboration.
Speaking about win-win, and there are a number of projects right now in the ecosystem that also talking and thinking about public goods, including like Optimism, right, and Gitcoin from the early days, and there are other projects like Drips, et cetera, and like as technology matures, right, and we are part of this ecosystem, we recognize that we can create the mechanisms like this one that is going to actually like fund public goods and fund the protocol layer and fund the projects that don't have like revenue streams as the application layer, for example. And I think that's also one of the most important things for us at Octant, because we are trying to build that system, and we started with that amount of capital. And then we recognize Diva in general, like other DVT solutions, but Diva specifically, for ability to build more resilient system, right, that will support decentralization. And as I mentioned before, like we're values aligned on this, and it's very important because that's where the social layer is. That's the ultimate layer. And if more people will recognize that, then I think we will have more brighter future for Ethereum.
Well said. Yeah,
for sure. So I'm having a look at the comments here. Some people were asking, some people remarked that you're playing handpan. Is that a musical instrument?
Oh yeah, I have a handpan.
Oh, it is a handpan.
Yeah, totally. I used to, when I was 4 or 5 years old, bang on everything as if it were a drum, and it drove my parents crazy. So I just thought to satisfy my inner child by getting something that I can bang on, and That's the extent of my music, my musical ability. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend if you enjoy just banging around on something to check the instrument out. It's a blast.
I just pull up the comments. I'm kind of happy that Nelson, I didn't read these before, but Nelson Rodmar and I had the same curiosity about how do you do this in a safe way? And yeah, I'm glad that you all had a satisfactory answer. How does this benefit Golem? That's a fair question.
Ooh, are we allowed to share that part of the model right now, Artem? I don't know if we are.
Well, no, I mean, the model is still in progress, but the point is that in general, at the Golem Foundation, we created a mechanism that incentivizes people to lock GLM token, like on one side, and receive the rewards, right? And there's a curve which creates both like matching pool and the individual rewards that creates user engagement. But the part of those rewards go back to the Golem Foundation. So not all of the, like in general, like I'm talking about Octant, right? Not all of those rewards go to the users. Part of this goes to the Golem Foundation. Right now, I think it doesn't cover like all the costs, because the first epoch, we essentially decided to give away, I think, almost everything, just covering the operational costs. But in the future, we hope that it will actually cover more for Golem Foundation. And specifically speaking about Diva, when we're talking about the delegation model, right, we're thinking that the obviously some part of this reward is going to go to the user. The most of the part is going to go to the user. Another part will go to the public goods funding, and obviously the operator will have to charge some fee for running the nodes from the user.
Yeah, I think to touch on that, so to TLDR it is increased rewards for the user, increased rewards for public goods, and then we're also exploring how we, within this framework that Artem described, how we can bake into the equation the GLM token so that there's utility within the model itself. So beyond just what Artem's referring to within locking GLM into Octant, there's other interesting ideas that we're exploring right now to have the GLM token be integral into some of these topics that we've discussed a little bit earlier in the call. So that's why I'm really excited about it for the GLM ecosystem.
But also, like, going to the question, like how Golem Foundation benefits from it. If we fund public goods and they thrive and they create impact, that's our benefit, because that's kind of one of the purposes of Octant, right? I'm just going to give an example. We were like funding the Commons as an organization that created residency in Berlin in September, and we were one of the biggest sponsors. And when we had a conversation internally in the residency, people asking like, what are the metrics for you to understand like what's the success for this project or other projects or other initiatives? And the answer was that like we want to see more public goods projects coming out of this residency. And the similar is also true for Octant in general. If we see projects that are funded by Octant created impact, and that impact can be measured, that can be considered as a success, and we can keep experimenting and growing the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think what was the question about Golem Foundation or like the Golem ecosystem or Golem community? Maybe
Golem stakers, and it's
Okay.
Golem stakers, and I think it really does. It's this revolving theme we've had that Golem stakers are getting a reward. If their reward is maximized for long-term value, because part of it goes to public goods funding, which stimulates the ecosystem, which builds a stronger protocol, which pays them better in the long run. The same kind of thing we've been trying to distill. That is a really kind of difficult message to get across.
And this is not, I'm not speaking for any of their design, but things that I'm excited to explore are how can you align people who are more long-term with more impact? Because generally you would want to maximize for that, right? And those are really interesting, like personal economic questions for me that, I wonder I wonder what kind of designs they'll come up with.
Well, just quickly to answer that, I'm really excited about what Optimism is doing with retroactive funding. And I don't know like where it's going to land eventually, but the whole idea of it, the assumption is that if you know that by creating the impact, you're going to be rewarded in the future, right? It's the concept that changes approach in the mindset of people of how you do the work. Because right now we live in the world when you know that you're going to go to work and you're going to get paid. It's like proactive. And if you're going to, somebody tells you like, you're going to do the work and then I'm going to pay you in a year. And it's like, no, it's not going to work out. And if the world will be different already right now, the model of the prospective funding could sound weird to you because we just got used to thinking about in this way. But right now we need, like in this world, we need to start optimizing more for impact, not for profit. Because there's just it's not sustainable like on this planet to live this way. So
well, I hate to say it, I feel like we could chat for another 3 hours on this topic, but we just hit an hour in our call here. I think we touched on a lot of amazing things, and I want to thank each of you for spending some time here and diving into the nuance, both on the partnership side and then just more broadly, you know, what's going on in the Ethereum ecosystem. Because I think it's through these communications and amplifying the message that, you know, on the social layer, we need to do something until it's baked into the code. You know, championing these messages that we're talking about because we all care deeply about Ethereum is really, really important. So again, thank you to all three of you for joining and you know, sharing your opinions and what we're really excited about between Octant and Diva and more broadly Ethereum as we move forward.
I love to hang out with people I'm so in sync with. Like I'm not like we're preaching to our own choir. Like we all have this virtuous set of values for Ethereum that we all embrace. So it's really a great opportunity. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Yeah, always enjoy like this kind of discussions.
Yeah,
super happy.
Really appreciate you all. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks to everybody who was watching. I appreciate you spending your time here as well. And yeah, look forward to upcoming announcements between both Octant and Diva. And yeah, we look forward to maybe chatting again soon when we have something interesting to share.
Okay,
cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
cool.
James.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.